Hey there, friends. Welcome back to, well, not back. Welcome to a Legally on America live stream, but welcome back to the channel. Of course, the one and only Truth Pimp. You guys know that. I felt like this needed to be a live stream today for a couple of reasons. One, I don't need, but I really want you guys' feedback. There's a lot going on, a lot of stuff that has happened over the last several weeks since all of this got kicked off. Gosh, 2 months ago, we started talking about all this. I mean, it's been a moving target from day one. And I felt like I needed to put something out there. Also, I have a lot of different things to show. And I felt like this would have been too long of a video to just put out. And I don't know you guys' feelings on long videos. My videos, I know, always tend to be kind of long. And I know some people complain about videos too long. I spent too much time here. Some people say you should respect our time and only do a 5-minute video. Look, I'm a nerd. I like to research stuff. I can't research stuff and put out 5-minute videos. I'm not built like that. I don't compartmentalize stuff quick enough in a video to be able to disseminate that kind of information in a 5-minute block. So all I can say is if you're looking for 5-minute videos for me to do 5 hours of research and bundle it into 5 minutes of video, I'm not capable of that. However, I do like to dig into things. And I've tried to provide some things to back up what I'm going to talk about here today. First of all, obviously, the video is going to be about the Hearing Protection Act, Short Act. At a very high level, let me just say, as you guys already know and you already see, Senate ekes out late night win on Trump's big, beautiful bill. This happened in the night. This is not gun related. This is from Axios. And look, don't give me any crap about it being on Axios. As you guys know, I try to pull a lot of information from left-leaning websites for this very reason, because I'm trying to give what the other side is saying. If we candy code everything and put it the way we want it to be told all the time, sometimes they don't get the true picture, and I like to know how they're spinning it on the left. That's why I'm pulling it from left sources in most cases. The story reads, Senate Republicans voted 51-49 late Saturday to move forward with President Trump's big, beautiful bill. Why it matters. All Republicans but Rand Paul and Tom Tillis ultimately voted yes, making the final tally 51-49. GOP holdouts, notably Ron Johnson, Mike Lee, Rick Scott, Cynthia Lummis, forced the vote to remain open for more than 3 hours while they negotiated with party leaders, including J.D. Vance. Johnson told reporters on Saturday that holdouts were promised a vote on an amendment that would reduce the federal matching share for new Medicaid enrollees. Scott has been pushing that approach. What to watch. Democrats are forcing this entire 940-page bill to be read. Of course, that took place over Saturday. Let's see. Marsha Blackburn plans to offer an amendment to strike a temporary pause to states on passing AI regulations. That's another negative in the bill, the AI stuff in there. Why would you try to prevent somebody else from being able to control AI related stuff? I think states should be able to do that. I don't like handing and having this kind of power given to the federal government to manage these things. So I'm all for the states being able to manage things on their own. And especially since AI is so new, I don't think the federal government has any business telling people how things should be. So I'm going to, let me grab some other websites real quick. I want to disclose a couple of things that I want to make really clear if I haven't made it clear yet. There's a lot of debate, especially on X right now, within the gun community, people that are taking sides on where the gun-related stuff. Now, there's a lot of garbage in this bill. That's not even gun-related. I'm talking about we, all of us, spent months, at least the last 2 months, engaging, getting involved, calling senators, calling Congress, calling everybody. Encouraging our friends to call, encouraging our friends to send emails, all that. We did that. I don't care how anybody discredits and devalues what we all as the gun community bring to the table. And the reason why this is important, we, the gun community, push this thing as far as it is. Why? Because it had something in there that we wanted. Did we like and do we like everything in this big, beautiful bill? Of course not. Excuse my friends, it's a shit show. So you take out what we wanted and it's absolute mess. We were just tolerant of some of the garbage in there because we were actually accomplishing something from a Second Amendment standpoint that we had not seen in decades, in a very long time, right? Now they take the things out that we want and expect us to be happy with the rest of the bill. The crap that we already didn't support. We were already non-supportive of that. We just went along with it. Like, well, I jotted some things down. Where are some of the things that I put? Well, off the top of my head, welfare for illegal aliens. Well, I don't know why my camera's cutting my head off. Sorry. Welfare for illegal aliens. Do you guys support that? I don't. I'm not trying to give free meals to people illegally entering this country. So no, that's one thing that I don't want. Guess what's in there? Not the NFA being stripped. Welfare for illegal aliens. Got put back in there. Awesome, right? That's killer. How does that make our country any safer or any better? It doesn't. What was the other thing that really pissed me off? And I can't believe that I can't remember what the other thing was. There were three things that I had a real case of the red ass on. I'll remember whatever it is along the way. I'm angry that I don't remember. There were two for sure. Three that I was upset. Anyway, long story short, if you don't know it already, what they passed, the version of what we wanted that made it through the Senate's bill, that now, again, there's a lot of things that have to take place, but obviously, if it leaves the Senate, it's going to have to go back to the House because things have changed in it. Remember the Senate parliamentarian that we talked about last week, all right? That person who is an unelected official that Harry Reid put in power, that was during the Obama administration, big time partisan. They can look, you can use the word nonpartisan all you want. I don't know anyone who's nonpartisan. I honestly don't. So don't tell me somebody gets involved in politics and they're nonpartisan. That's not possible. We've seen it even in the Supreme Court. Those justices are all partisan, right? They pretend to not be, but they are. So we have a partisan Senate parliamentarian who is making decisions that's overruling everything that the House and the Senate want in the bill. So you have 535 elected officials in the United States between the Senate and the House, and one person overrides everybody because she's the rule keeper. Her job is to make sure that when things go through the reconciliation process, that they are tied to some type of a budgetary issue. So one thing might qualify, one thing might not qualify based on how the interaction is with money. She determines that. She's kind of the scorekeeper, the rule keeper, if you will. She's the one who has determined that taking these items off the NFA and stripping them all together, even though they're called a tax stamp stamp's not a tax. Yeah, make that make sense. More on that in a second. So she's determined that. So what they've decided to do is what they think is a compromise, because they think we're a bunch of stupid hillbillies, is that, hey, these dummies, because they all live in single wide trailers where the floor's falling out, they're so stupid and eager just to not have to spend money. Let's keep the regulation part in there with the NFA and just make it zero it out. So the dumb hillbillies will be okay with it. We're the dumb hillbillies, right? They really think that we're going to be okay with that. You know, I've said this on 4 or 5 videos that you guys have seen of mine in the past. It was never about the $200. I'm not trying to act all high and mighty like I got a bunch of money. Do I want to spend $200 bucks? Hell no. But it was never about that. It was about the illegal registration that they had if I wanted a short barrel rifle, short barrel shotgun, or a suppressor. It's always been about that. And I'm sure most of you feel the same way. So now you're going to tell me that you're going to charge me nothing for me to register my guns and my suppressors. That's essentially what this, quote, compromise is. Guess what, Paul? We're doing you a favor. Now we're not going to charge you to infringe upon your rights. And I'm supposed to thank you for that? Look at the sentence you just told me. I'm going to infringe upon you for free now. What's the difference? The result is the same. You're infringing upon me. They're creating a registration of all these items that have no reason to be on there, but now they think we're dumb, we're stupid, because paying zero will make us happy about it. And there are organizations, especially politicians, but there are organizations out there who are celebrating this as a win. I understand that you take your small wins when you can, but this isn't a win. I don't see how it is. As long as the registration is still part of this, that's the part I don't like. To assume that I'm going to be happy with it because you zeroed it out doesn't make any sense to me. Now, here's where it gets interesting. I want to explain first. Remember, they're trying to say this isn't part of reconciliation. Do you guys give me 1 second? I see my son out here. He, I think, needs a bathroom break. Sorry about that, guys. My son sits out by the pool when I'm in my studio, so I'm overlooking the whole backyard, and I see him fidgeting. Let's just say that. My son has special needs, if you guys don't know. So I see him fidgeting out there, so I just assumed he had to go to the restroom. So my apologies. I'm keeping an eye on the little man. I have cameras when he goes inside, and then I can see him when he's outside. So it's a good setup that I have, and he's a good kid. I mean, he's not a mischievous one, if you will. Back to what I was talking about. Okay, they determine, the Senate parliamentarian, that person thinks this is not reconciliation related because it's not a tax, even though you literally have a tax stamp that says tax stamp. It's called a tax stamp, and it has $200 with a dollar sign written on it, which implies money, right? So the whole reason why that sticks in my craw so badly is this. Let me show you this. Give me 1 second to swap my screen over. And we will look at this. Where is it? There it is. Okay. So this is what I'm going to refer to, and you can read along. I may zoom in on that just to make sure that we can all read it. The power to tax, the Second Amendment, and the search for which gangster weapons to tax, right? See if I can do this. It might be a little too big. Is that good? You guys can see that? Just want you to be able to read along if you want to. Okay. Congress does not have the power to ban firearms. The National Firearms Act is based on the power of Congress to lay and collect taxes. In 1937, the Supreme Court upheld the NFA as purely a revenue measure. When it banned possession of machine guns in 1986, Congress undercut that constitutional basis. The Supreme Court has held that any ambiguities in the NFA must be read narrowly according to the rule of leniency. The 1934 House hearing barely mentioned the Second Amendment. Federal judge upheld the NFA under that theory. The Second Amendment does not protect individual rights. Stupid. In 1939, the Supreme Court declined to take judicial notice that a short barrel shotgun is ordinary military ordnance protected under Second Amendment. Recently, the court has adopted the test that the Second Amendment protects arms that are in common use. Remember that, common use. The initial NFA bill and the bill as enacted arbitrarily excluded some firearms and excluded others. After enactment, the Attorney General went on a failed crusade to require all firearms to be registered. Bottom line is that this ruling was, and this write-up is basically stating that via a 1937 Supreme Court decision, they determined that the National Firearms Act was legal because it was a tax. Follow what I'm saying? They determined that the reason why it could stay in play, it had the protection of being a tax. So I don't need anyone from the Senate parliamentarian office telling me that it's not a tax, because an organization or a group, meaning the Supreme Court, that outranks her tremendously because it is one of the third branches of our federal government, has already ruled that she is wrong. So it's a tax, and it's on record as being a tax. You might be thinking, well, how come somebody hasn't overruled her? That's awesome. Let me explain to you who can overrule her. John Thune's not going to do anything. John Thune is, I don't know why my camera keeps doing that. What it's seeing that it wants to follow. It's like got this mind of its own. John Thune, Senate Majority Leader right now. He has the power to do just about everything that needs to be done right now to make this happen. He could fire her. The biggest thing is he could ignore her. The Senate parliamentarian's job is not a binding job. She doesn't have an actual role in legislation or anything like that. Her role is simply to correct somebody with information. She's kind of like, the best way I can describe it, she's a human encyclopedia for members of the Senate. You got questions about whether or not this is reconciliation based? Go ask her. If somebody puts bad information in encyclopedia, you don't read that and make it law. You determine that what you just read was wrong and you ignore it, right? We have determined that the Senate parliamentarian is wrong. So ignore her. Screw her. There's literally no repercussions. None. You can tell her to pound sand if you want to. John Thune could walk up to her, grab his nuts, and say, here's your reconciliation. He could absolutely do that. And there's nothing she could do. Maybe an HR complaint. But there's nothing that she can do. There's no repercussions. John Thune could tell her to go take a flying F on the horse she rode in on. And it wouldn't matter. Because you can ignore her. You can override her. You do not have to follow what she's doing. Now, since we know John Thune ain't going to do that, guess who else can? J.D. Vance. Where you at, J.D.? J.D. Vance could solve all this. He could swoop in. He could make John Thune, with pressure, fire the parliamentarian, right? But he could go in there as the president of the Senate, I'm talking about J.D. Vance, and overrule her and say, screw her. We're gonna do it our way. Don't follow her lead. So like I said the other day, I do believe that Senate Republicans are choosing to follow the Senate parliamentarians' lead. In other words, they don't want what we want. But it's easy for them to sit back and cross their arms and go, oh, it's not my fault. It's a Senate parliamentarian. When they could be going to Thune or Vance and telling Thune and Vance, tell that broad that we're not going to listen to her. She can pack her crap and go home. We don't need you today. We're done with you. Yeah, we're good. Bye. Extend your lunch break a little bit, something. But we don't need you here because we're not going to listen to you on this. But they're choosing not to do that. This is a choice. I have a guy mad at me right now in my comment section on one of my other videos. This isn't the Senate's choice. No, the Senate didn't make this happen. But the Senate has rules that they can implement and things that they can do to bypass the Senate parliamentarian, and they're not doing that. So whose fault is that? Whoever is in the Senate. They need to put pressure on Thune and Vance to do that. It's not my job to do that. We're doing that because we're making phone calls, but your senators should be pressuring Thune and Vance to do these things and say, put the full wording of the NFA back in this thing, or we're not touching it. Because again, you took out what we wanted. And make no mistake, and I know this, we pushed this across the finish line. I'm talking about the gun community, you guys and us. Had we not made such a strong push, none of this other garbage would have made it across the finish line. We did this. And again, now they pull our stuff out. What's some of my other notes? This is one of the things that, okay, I truly look at everything in terms of who has the power now, who's going to have the power later, because it ain't going to be Trump in there forever. In fact, if they don't fix this, J.D. Vance ain't going to win. And midterms are going to be a bloodbath in 2 years. But I can promise you, J.D. Vance, your hopes of being in the White House are done. If you go look at the comment section of my videos over the last few days, and I agree with them, people are wholeheartedly stating, I'm never going to vote again, and I will certainly never vote for another Republican. And you know what? They're right up to a certain degree. We know what the Democrats are going to do. If you have a Democrat over your area, then you know what they're always going to do. They're liars, but they lie about dumb stuff, right? They don't lie to their constituents as far as we're pro-gun and then do the opposite, right? When have you ever heard a Democrat tell a constituent, hey, I'm going to try to regain some of your rights, and then they didn't follow up. No, they tell you to your face, I'm trying to ban stuff. Now, I'm not voting for that either. I'm just saying, I'm not going to vote for the person running against them because I've been voting for the person running against them, and they're not standing firm on what I want and what I believe in. These people could do more, and they're not doing it. But if you let this go like it is, and remember, Republican White House, Republican House, Republican Senate, they control everything right now. They can't do anything. They're not doing anything with the power that they have. And this ain't going to last long. Midterms, again, are likely to be a bloodbath. So they won't be able to get anything done in a year and a half. This is the time to do it. But if you allow them, for those of you out there that are celebrating 0% tax stamp is a great thing, let's just keep the illegal registration in place. Okay, let me tell you why that's a bad idea. Anytime you give a Democrat, especially, because they're evil, that's the difference between the two. They're super evil. I mean, you got scumbags on the right too, but these people look at an opportunity to exploit a rule and use it in a way that you definitely don't want. Once you zero out that tax stamp, you just get, and it's already out there. I mean, I think that we've already opened this Pandora's box. You zero out a tax stamp. You don't think there's Democrats sitting back licking their chops right now? Because I will give the Democrats one thing they're credit for. They're very patient. They're very patient. They'll wait 4 to 8 years sitting and stewing on something, and then they'll do it. They did it with filibuster, all kind of other stuff. When you show them that you can zero it out, that cost for that tax stamp can also go up. If you show them that they can adjust the cost of a tax stamp, everybody high-fiving themselves out there right now over a $0 tax stamp. You might be getting a $5,000 tax stamp in 4 years. You understand what I'm saying? Because they will not hesitate. They will be very open about it. Hell, they might even campaign on it, that this was unconstitutional or some garbage. This is against our democracy. The Democrats, when they run for president again. And they may campaign on taking that number from $0 to $5,000. So you may never be able to afford anything again. In fact, they might use the language of the NFA being implemented as a tax in 1934 and apply the cost of living and what the true dollar amount would have been in 2025, 2026, whatever the time the election is, and say this is what the amount of a tax stamp should cost us today based on inflation and the cost of living and everything else being piled on top of that from 1934. Oh, by the way, this is the dollar amount. If it was originally intended at 200 in 1934, then it should be this in 2026. So wait for that argument to come out. But we have shown them that the argument can be made to change that dollar figure. So again, expect it to go up. It sure ain't going down anymore. But you know what stays in place? The registry is still there. And honestly, that's the thing they wanted all along. So now they may double dip and say, we're making you register, but now we're going to triple and quadruple charge you for these items now. So yeah, we're opening that box up right now by giving tips to the Democrats on how to adjust the money there. Let's see. Oh, one point I wanted to make. If things are truly about money, you go out there and implement a $0 tax stamp. And I know people are going to take advantage of it. Of course they will, if that passes. What's going to happen? You know how right now you're getting your approval within a day or two? A lot of people are. Actually, before I left for my trip on Wednesday of last week, I submitted my paperwork for 3 new CMMG suppressors. On Thursday, they called me, said they're ready. One day turnaround time. That's now. Implement a $0 stamp. Now, I know there's still a lot of you out there that simply won't. I mean, you're not going to fall for the registry part of it. I do it because I'm trying to work with CMMG. I don't buy a lot of suppressors. I'm on enough lists. I'm not trying to get on more. So what happens? There's a lot of people buying suppressors out there right now. Imagine the guy who just bought 3 suppressors out there. He obviously doesn't mind spending money. So now his only expense is going to be the actual suppressor. because now you're allowing him to get zero on that. They're going to flood the system. We're going to go right back to waiting 2 years for our suppressors to come in and short barrel rifles and short barrel shotguns. So the cost is going to be pretty insignificant to anything because you're not going to have the turnaround times you have now. It's going to bog the system down. And then we're going to have the ATF coming back to us telling us, oh, you know, we need more money now because it's taking us too long to process these forms for the NFA items. So it's going to screw the system up, right? If you, how can I explain this? If the system is flooded, what happens is, this is going to sound like a plus, but it's not. This is where I think Democrats will take this. And this is the biggest fear I have with the $0 being on there and still being on the registry. If we flood the system with all of these suppressors and SBRs and short barrel shotguns, short barrel rifles, if suddenly the system gets flooded and there's tons out there, that means they're now in what? Common use, right? Sounds like a good thing, doesn't it? I mean, if we can make everything out there common use, then that's awesome, right? Because now Supreme Court can rule that it's common use. You can't infringe upon them. They're infringing upon them already. So now what if they suddenly say, if you have all of these NFA items that are now in common use, what's going to happen? You're going to start seeing more of them being used in crimes. I mean, we just will. Not because it's the tool of choice, but because they're being proliferated out there in mass numbers. So eventually, a short barrel rifle, a short barrel shotgun, or suppressor will wind up at a crime scene. I mean, we just know that it will. Just the numbers lay that out. What has the left and the gun control movement always been after? Let me bring up my next slide and I'll show you. Stand by 1 second, guys. I'll bring this up. I have a point to make here. So bear with me 1 second. All right. So this right here, and this is the only place I could find the wording for this that I was looking for. This is actually from Wikipedia. I know that's not the most reliable source out there, but it does state facts in here. The ostensible impetus for the National Firearms Act of 1934 was the gangland crime of the Prohibition era, such as the St. Valentine's Day Massacre of 1929 and the attempted assassination of President-elect FDR in 1933, brought about by alcohol being illegal, like the current National Firearms Act, the 1934 Act, required NFA items to be registered and taxed. And here we go. Look at this paragraph right here. This is what scares me. Originally, pistols and revolvers were to be regulated as strictly as machine guns. Towards that end, cutting down a rifle or shotgun circumventing handgun restrictions by making a concealable weapon was taxed as strictly as a machine gun. They took pistols and revolvers out. Look at the next paragraph. Conventional pistols and revolvers were ultimately excluded from the act before passage, but other concealable weapons were not. Just like today. I talk about this all the time. Just like today. Their original intent was always pistols. It always was. It was always about handguns. That's what they wanted to regulate. But they could not because there were too many being used out there. They couldn't make this pass the smell test for the NFA. So they got what they could by excluding the pistols, but that was the original intent. If you look at statistical numbers, we often scratch our head wondering, why does the left go after AR-15 since they are not used in crimes? They're not used in rampage killings type mass shootings. They're not used abundantly in most crimes, gangland shootings, things of that nature. They're not abundantly used in them. So why do they focus on them? Well, that's why, because they're not used as much. Because the pistols and handguns, more specifically semi-automatic handguns, are definitely, by far, exponentially the tool of choice of people who want to shoot other people. It's not even close. It's like probably 90% of illegal shootings out there where people are shooting at each other are done with pistols, handguns, semi-automatic firearms. Point is, That's what they really want. They're going after the AR-15s because once they normalize banning things, they can move on to the next thing. So by normalizing banning an AR-15, you get used to hearing it. And of course, once they're successful at it, if that ever happens, then you certainly, I mean, we're never going to be okay with it, but people get used to hearing that you're banning something, right? They've heard it so many times, they're banning something else. They've always wanted to go after handguns. Go back to what I originally said. If we include these things in the NFA, and now we put so many NFA items on the NFA, now they're considered in common use, what can they turn around and do? Oh, by the way, on our NFA items, which we regulate because they're so dangerous, we have all these items on there, and there's millions and millions and millions of SBSs, SBRs, and suppressors out there. So guess what? Now the Supreme Court rules that they're in common use, and we're all back here going, yes, they're in common use now. You can't infringe upon them. Then they turn right back around and say, and now we're going to put all of those other things that are not on the NFA that are also common use, like semi-automatic handguns, on the NFA also. Don't think that we're not a decade away from putting pistols on the NFA once we put the NFA items at zero and we flood the market with them, and all these items become out there. Now they're going to be able to cite the statistics of handguns being the #1 supplier of crime out there as far as people selecting and choosing them to murder people. Now they can say, you see all these items on the NFA, we regulate those because they're so dangerous. Now look, we have another common use item, just like all the ones on the NFA, that we're also going to put on there now. Why? For public safety. That's what they've always been after. Again, since at least 1934, but they've always wanted handguns and pistols. This could be a backdoor way for them to eventually get there. I know it's not going to happen next term. I know that. I'm not that naive. But again, as I stated earlier, they are patient. They will wait this out. It may be your kids, maybe your grandkids, think they'll move faster than that. But if we allow things like this to happen, at some point, they start to use these things that we believe and that we start to think are victories against us. And we naively just follow along because we thought it was a victory all along. This is not a victory. It is not a victory. Let me look at some other things that I had on my website. Oh, I know what it was. Excuse me. The other thing that I might have had another slide to share in here. The other thing that I wanted to mention was I mentioned the welfare for illegal aliens, right? The other thing that I have a real problem with, in fact, coincidentally, is why I got kicked out of GunCon, is the gender mutilation. They put that back in the bill. Remember, there was a little bit of kind of side debate. Again, this is where we get distracted just looking at the gun things and we lose track of some of the things that are actually happening. They put that back in there. They put funding of gender mutilation for children back into this big, beautiful bill. So again, if we sit back and celebrate that zero is a win for us, even though it's still regulated, we have to realize we're also supporting gender mutilation and welfare for illegal immigrants. You take the NFA restriction and leave it in there, there's nothing in the bill for me. Like there's nothing I support. It's a garbage bill from front to back. And again, they used us to push this over the finish line. I don't think the Republicans are smart enough because I think they're inherently stupid when they do a lot of these things. But if they were smart enough to know, use the gun community to help push these 2A amendments that are in the bill over the finish line, because along with it, we're going to get all the other crap with it. If they were smart enough to do that, that's some smart stuff, but that's some shady stuff. That's some evil, shady crap right there. But we did it. We got it here. It was us that did this. We made this thing become successful. We pushed it through the House. We demanded these things. They appeased us by keeping it in there, got it to the Senate, and let one unelected person, the Senate parliamentarian, tell us, nope, you can't have it. Talk about pulling the rug out from under your feet. I'm going to show you what Gun Owners of America has put out. Gun Owners of America has put out. Gun Owners of America has put out. let's see where it is. This is their X page. Okay, so this is what they're talking about. Let me get the full page because I think you need to see this whole thing a little bit bigger. All right, let's go through this. There's a lot of good, well-worded stuff in here. GOA is doing everything in our power. I don't want to do that. Let's go down here. GO is fighting the parliamentarian's ruling. Elizabeth McDonald, that's the parliamentarian, should be fired. If John Thune would not fire her, her non-binding advice should be ignored. There we go. And overruled by Senate President J.D. Vance or President Pro Tempore Chuck Grassley. And I wasn't aware that Chuck Grassley actually had a role in this, but this is interesting. GOA is pressing for both of these strategies in the Senate and all through this week. We have been rallying the grassroots with alerts, urging gun owners. In the interim, while the parliamentarian's outrageous ruling stands, we are also using the Senate rules to gut the NFA as much as possible. Going to talk about the zero. Now, this is where there's some debate online. Let's see. Gun owners will remember that when the fight was in the House, we demanded that representatives go further than just reducing the tax to zero. We worked for a drastic gutting of the NFA, and we were successful, which we were. That bill went to the Senate. The only thing it lacked was the Short Act. It had the full gutting of suppressors off of the NFA in there. The Short Act was actually added later on in the Senate and then removed as far as the full removal of it, right? Now they're removing the money, just not the registration. Let me come down here. They talk about Crenshaw's. I'm not going through the Crenshaw stuff. They talk about how Crenshaw did something with the gender mutilation. I'm not going to go through his process because to me it's unrelated to the gun bill stuff. If the parliamentarian finds a $0 tax for suppressor and short barrel firearms to be compliant with the Byrd rule, which happened, then Senator Schumer will have lost all of his leverage. He can object to the provision, but he would need 60 votes to get the NFA tax repeal stricken from the bill. So at this point, this is plan A or plan B, depending on what the Senate parliamentarian wants to do. Now, Senate parliamentarian will go far. I'm telling you right now, will approve of and go for that $0 tax on NFA items because she is partisan, regardless of what she tells you. And she knows that the registration was the goal all along. The money was not. Look, guys, if the money was ever an issue, the $200, it wouldn't be $200 today. If it was ever about funding something, they would have raised that $200 every year according to whatever inflation or everything else was. They haven't raised it because it was never about the money. And you can see that here. The fight is for the registration, not the money. It's really not. Let's see. What else do we have down here? Aiden posted something also. I'm going to do this. I don't want to keep you guys on here. I felt like this was interesting that we needed to talk about this. Because, for one, again, it's too long of a video to just put out there as a regular video. Had too much to say, and I'm kind of flying by the seat of my pants on this. I think the pressure that we have to put on now, and since I'm doing this live, I don't have the number, but if you will stand by while I talk, I will get it. I think there's one person who can fix this. Let me see. J.D. Vance, Vice President. I'm not saying he will. I don't want anybody saying, oh, you're expecting him to save the day. No, I'm not. I want to give you a number to call his office and hammer them and say that J.D. Vance needs to get involved in this. God damn, I can't. Here it is. What in the world is that even? I don't even know what that is. It's funny that I can't even seem to pull up Google of all things. Here we go, Google. Here we go. White House, J.D. Vance. Contact. Great. It doesn't give me a number. It gives me a contact form. I will get the number and I will post it. I'll post it in the comment section down below. I'll post it in a pinned comment down below that I'll pin to the top so that you can contact them. But I think that at this point, John Thune, we know where he stands. We've always known where John Thune stood. He's a lapdog. He ain't on our side. He never has been. He's not going to start being. So I think we have to go beyond that. John Thune could do a lot. He's choosing not to. J.D. Vance needs to be told this. I'm not going to tell you what to tell him, but I'm going to tell you what to include. If you let J.D. Vance's office know, you need to encourage him to fire the Senate parliamentarian, or what I think he needs to do is just tell the Senate, overrule her, ignore her, act like she's not even there. Do what y'all want to do. They don't need the Senate parliamentarian's approval to make this happen with the full text of the NFA being stripped in the Senate bill. They don't need that. I think they're voting on it tonight or something like that. Today, I might be voting on it right now. So they can do that. But if you stress to J.D. Vance that if you get directly involved, we as gun owners have a very good memory. We're going to remember one of two things. We're either going to remember that you didn't support gun owners when you could, that you could have done this, and you chose not to get involved when we knew you could fix it. Or you got involved, you saved us, you saved this portion of the bill by having the full stripping of the NFL language removed from the bill, and we're grateful for that, and we're going to have you elected in 2028. So we're going to do one of two things, actually three. We're either going to put you in office in 2028, we're going to sit it out in 2028, and you're going to get hammered, or we're going to vote against you in 2028 in the primaries. One way or another, we're not going to forget about this. And I think we have to come together. We got it this far, which means we do have leverage. We carry a big stick. The Second Amendment community does. I'm talking about all of us, you guys. We have to leverage it. This is the 11th hour to get this thing done the right way. And I think this is the only way we do it. I have zero confidence in Thune. I have zero confidence in any other Republican in the Senate right now. I think J.D. Vance is the only answer we have. That's my opinion, but I'm sticking with it. I've made my calls, and I am going to continue hitting up J.D. Vance's office. Again, I've got the number in the house, but I'm going to post it here in a second when I get off this video. I'll post it in the comment section down below. I'll pin that comment so you can go look for it. I'll also put it in the description down below. Please, guys, please. We have gotten this close. We're so close to getting this, and I do believe we can get it. If J.D. Vance knows, he didn't agree to be vice president because he doesn't want to be president. He agreed to be vice president because he thought it was the natural next step to become president in only 4 years. He wants this, the presidency. If we can convince him, we know we got you this far, we can get you there also if you want it. But you got to do a little something for us. Thanks, guys. I appreciate all of you. I have not been able to read any of your comments. As you guys noticed, cool little function that StreamYard now allows us to do is put the comments on screen also as they scroll. I like that. I'm going to see if I can't make it take up the whole side of the page. But I do like that because I usually enjoy the interaction with the comment section. I'm doing all this by myself today, so I just haven't had a time to dedicate to looking at the comments. I apologize for that. But I do appreciate you guys being on here and always following through, watching the videos. And guys, look, please share this video. I know it's long, but there's some key points that I make throughout the video, especially at the beginning, that would be helpful for your friends and family members to help us out to get this word out. If nothing else, share the Senate number, the number for J.D. Vance with them. But if they're needing some background as to why, have them watch the video. I think this is probably going to take place today. So I do think this is the time that we have to go through this. So thank you guys so very much. I appreciate you always being here. And I will be back tomorrow with another video, possibly talking about this one way or the other. Thank you, guys.